the pockets of everybody else.
The chairman of the People's Front for Transition, Dr. Kiza Besigye, says government should address the bad economic situation in the country instead of creating an Ebola crisis. And in sports, Uganda under-20 men's national football team last night secured a slot to next year's under-20 Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt. A very good evening to you and welcome to CTV PM Edition with me, Melissa Moha, and Isaac Luchamuzi on Sign Language. We start off from the August House, where the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, has warned members of Parliament to desist from sharing committee reports to the public before they are discussed on the floor. Now, this follows the leakage of a report on the investigation of Uganda Airlines by the Committee on Commissions, Statutory Authorities and State Enterprises.
Chaired by the Nakawa West Member of Parliament Joel Senyonyi, the Committee on Commissions, Statutory Authorities and State Enterprises (COSASE) spent much of September investigating operations of Uganda Airlines. The committee revealed irregularities in recruitment of senior management, procurement, among other misdeeds. The report is yet to be presented to Parliament for debate. However, it has since been leaked to some media houses.
A committee of COSASE on Uganda Airlines has been leaked to the media, and we are investigating who leaked that report to the media. How do we release a report which has not been discussed? Let's be ethical enough. I mean, I don't see why you should give out a report before it comes to the House.
Speaker Anita Among says Parliament has embarked on investigating the matter, with the Leader of Opposition in Parliament, Mathias Impuga, tasked to present a report detailing what happened.
Rule 2161 of the Rules of Procedure prohibits the publishing of a report or any evidence in this committee before it is tabled in the House. That is a committee of opposition. We want to know who leaked out the report, and we want a report from a leader of opposition, because we are not going to encourage that. So why do we discuss what has gone out?
The lawmakers believe that this shows the lack of trust in the systems of Parliament, which violates the rules of procedure.
Somebody may want to blackmail Parliament to be like shy, not to debate the report as it is required, or for example, not to amend some of the recommendations.
These committees are there to execute duties of Parliament, and once issues are discussed with agencies, MDAs and other stakeholders, we expect this report to be compiled and it comes to the floor of Parliament, and the debate is engaged and the resolutions are passed from Parliament. Then that's when the press can own the report and move with it out. But
MPs want the culprits brought to book after investigations are done.
So leakage is a very serious offense, and that's why if it has occurred from the committee members, they should get very serious, and the Leader of Opposition should take very serious action as the Speaker has directed.
We took an oath of secrecy, an oath to uphold the constitution of this country and work in a very organized manner. So if there's a particular committee that is doing that, I think the leadership of this committee needs to revisit the membership and needs to, either orient and, caution that committee.
The development poses questions on whether the same report will be debated and adopted by the same House. Ramzan Mure, CTV PM Edition.
Thank you, Ramson. Moving on, the Uganda National Roads Authority, UNRA, has been faulted by COSASE for illegal inter-project tree allocation and overspending of 124 billion shillings through moving cash from one financial account to a different one. The committee is scrutinizing the UNRA operation.
The 2021 Auditor General's report indicated that UNRWA officials diverted shillings 124 billion from planned activities to unplanned ones, which violates the Public Financial Management Act.
To Auditor General's report, he was not satisfied that you did this in the project fund reallocation with the right procedures, and according to the report, the auditors didn't get evidence for approving the inter-project fund reallocation.
So we want to understand, for starters, why does money move from one project to another?
While justifying the allocation before COSASI, chaired by Joel Senyonyi, UNRWA's Executive Director Allen Kajina said that reallocations were made to avoid accumulating interest on projects' commitments, as well as enabling projects that had stalled to be completed. Kajina produced a letter claiming to have sought permission from the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, for allocation of the 124 billion.
That we have projects which have run out of their money that was allocated in the year and are likely to incur interest on the one hand, and on the second hand we have other projects which for various reasons were slow moving during the year and have money on them. The first thing we do is to apply the law that allows us reallocation. I made the mistake of making an announcement that we will not do new roads in the subsequent year until we had completed the roads which were running, so that we avoid this interest accumulation and therefore forcing management to go into mischarge. Why I say I made the mistake is because this was not my powers.
However, Kajina's explanation was challenged by MPs on the committee, who reminded her that such permission can be granted by Finance Minister, non-permanent secretary, according to the Public Finance Management Act.
What was the total reallocation? And then, was this money put to proper use? Was it used for what it is said to have done? That's very important.
My request is that we get the list of those companies when they mischarged, the companies that benefited, the ones which are faster and the ones which are very slow. Then as a committee we can take a decision whether we should go to the visitor and see what actually they are doing.
How much do you push to have good roads and to avoid these penalties and winding up of companies, specifically local companies? People's homes are being sold because there's no proper appropriation.
Parliament appropriated money for UNRWA for particular projects. Over 134 billion was diverted by UNRWA without authorization from the line ministry, and also without authorization from Parliament. This becomes a questionable expenditure.
Senyonyi and MPs on the committee directed Kajina to table a list of affected and beneficiary projects of the money that was reallocated tomorrow when she reappears before the committee. The same Auditor General's report shows that UNRWA asked for 98 billion for staff salaries for the year 2020-2021 financial year, but MPs found out that 93 was spent on salaries and the balance of 5 billion was spent by UNRWA top officials without approval of the Minister of Finance.
The face of the financial statements indicated 98.3 billion financial statements, according to the Auditor General. The actual expenditure file indicated 93.7 billion. So the head of finance and the accounting officer, why did you show a different figure in the face of the financial statement, a figure differing from the figure that was according to the file? Why?
Having funds that we did not spend on employee costs, we did divert them to pay debt on maintenance, which we have already alluded to. So it's part of the mischarge.
MPs are still scrutinizing UNRWA operations. Sarah Nakandi, CTV, PM Edition.
The Deputy Governor for Bank of Uganda, Michael Atingi, has asked members of parliament to legislate towards increased agriculture production to enable the country service its debt. Uganda's debt stands at 80 trillion shillings, which is 50% of the gross domestic product. However, Bank of Uganda officials say the debt situation is still sustainable.
Over the years, Uganda's debt has been on the rise, with little attention being paid to servicing it. As the debt rises, the value of the country's currency has been depreciating, leaving many policy analysts and economists worried over debt sustainability.
Our biggest issue has been the charges related to the loans, even commitment fees only.
Appearing before the Parliamentary Committee on Finance, the Deputy Governor of Bank of Uganda, Michael Atingi said Uganda's hope to service the debt depends on increased production, especially in the agriculture sector. He wants Parliament to pass a budget that favors agriculture production as well as value addition.
First of all, through increased production, we can produce more cash crops for export. Through value addition, we can have import substitution to conserve on forex. Through value addition, we can have more manufactured exports, agro-processed exports that fetch more value for our exports. So that means we are increasing the availability of foreign currency through import substitution and more exports through manufactured goods and agro products. So really, issue is production.
Uganda is owed 47 trillion shillings by foreign lenders, while 33 trillion is owed domestically. There are concerns over the terms of some loans negotiated by government and the role played by the central bank.
I liked it when you said we should pay keen interest as members of parliament to the fact that when money is released, what is it going to do?
Can you give us comfort of where our reserves are? The last time I read, we were at 4.2 trillion, actually 4-month import cover. What has it done to our reserves? What is the size of our reserves now?
What role does Bank of Uganda play in advising government when it's getting these loans? I will give an example. If government gets a loan for infrastructure, you know you're constructing this road, it has both quantitative and qualitative benefit.
Because we seem to be a net importing country, is it possible for us to borrow in another currency other than the dollar?
The Deputy Governor says such negotiations have cost the country's reserves of about 1.8 billion shillings so far in the 2022-2023 financial year. He says the country is now strained to pay immediate debts.
The Bank of Uganda foreign exchange cash flow is a bit tight. It's tight because there is considerable amount of debt servicing in the next 2 to 3 years. Even government imports are partly contributing to that. Like we mentioned that in 22-23 alone is about 1.8 billion. So anything that does not fall within this time, that's what you should consider. And by then, we're also very hopeful that the oil production will have come to enable us to get some effects to services.
Globally, many economies are suffering. This has been Uganda's inflation increase from 7 to 10%. According to the Deputy Governor, the economic turbulence is likely to be settled in 2025.
The chairman of the People's Front for Transition, Dr. Kizza Besigye, has condemned the early closure of schools by the government to control the spread of Ebola. The school term has been cut short by 2 weeks as one of the measures to decongest schools to control the virus. The term will end on Friday, November 25th.
On Tuesday, the Ministry of Education announced that the third term will end prematurely on November 25th due to the outbreak of Ebola in schools. Dr. Kizza Besigye, the chairman of the People's Front for Transition, says the government has moved to close schools earlier than expected due to the ongoing Ebola outbreak in the country was uncalled for. According to Besigye, the closure of schools is not in any way related to the outbreak of Ebola, but due to the worsening economic crisis in the country.
So the budget that was made, which the regime is using now, it was approved in April of this year. the assumptions that were made in that budget were long overtaken by events. Hence, the spiraling inflation. Ebola closure. It's an economic crisis closure. Just like the 2-year closure of health, which was called COVID closure of schools for 2 years. It was not a COVID closure, because eventually when they opened the schools, nothing had been done different from what was there.
BSJ told journalists at the Forum for Democratic Change headquarters in Najanakumi today that the economic crisis should be blamed for the rising crime in the country.
That episode of grabbing guns clearly is not for ordinary crime. It is political. It is a political response to the crisis. And who is responding? Who is responding? Who is grabbing the guns? Well, we don't know. It is either the victims of the crisis, but it could also be the state itself undertaking such clandestine measures so that they create the ground. They say, you see, now there is insurgency, so that they can then pounce and maybe even declare a state of emergency, have martial law, so that they repress the population even further.
Dr. BSJ criticized President Museveni for involving the army in missions that have nothing to do with the country's interests.
So, our forces in Congo, which were deployed by General Muhoozi, that time, of course, as the commander of land forces, was it a reinforcement of the M23? Are we part now of a foreign conflict? Because, as we have seen, there are those who are against, those who are for, so we are the ones we have taken a side as a country in the conflict in Congo. And the people of Uganda must pay for that. And do we have even a parliament in this country?
Best just said Ugandans should be alert because very soon opposition groups will introduce a plan that will be used to respond to the worsening economic and security situation in the country. Safi, Mokili Baluku and Lubega Ibrahim Kasinga, CTV, PM Edition.
Leaders in Luwera district are complaining about the sorry state of the roads in the area. We bring you this story and more after the break.
Sometimes in life, we spend all the time trying to live other people's life. And along the way, we lose who we are by copying what other people are doing in their relationship.
You see, from the last time I met your sister, I've not spent a day or a minute without thinking about her.
It's a good surprise on a Monday. This is nice.
So you and him are
we're just friends. Wow. Come on.
Just friends.
You either tell me where you're from or you go back to where you've been.
Thinking it would work out for us, but yet to find out that's not who we are after experiencing a great disappointment.
She's in love with some other man, so classy, a gentleman, not poor dogs like you.
These are the mistakes girls do.
Now showing on CTV. Don't blink.
Recharge your day with Sting. Extreme energy, refreshing taste, available countrywide. Sting, life switched on, from the makers of Pepsi.
Welcome back to CTV PM Edition with me, Melissa Mboha, and Isaac Luchamuzi on Sign Language. Moving on, following the success of the Pearl Africa Sat-1 satellite launch on Monday, the National Science Week continues to attract visitors. Today marks the third day of the exhibition at Kololo Independence Ground, where scientists and innovators are showcasing their projects to various stakeholders. Take a look.
Among members of Parliament who visited the Science Week exhibition was the Shadow Minister for Science and Technology, Gority Namuga. According to the Vision 2040, the government is set out to make Uganda one of the best countries in terms of technological development. Science and Technology Minister Dr. Monica Musenero asked innovators to create projects that will build a better Uganda.
The future is not just for me, but for all of us who are here now, for our children and their children's children.
Despite the need to improve technology, according to Musenero, there is need for the government to provide incentives to the private.
Activate that innovation component as science and technology and innovation is we have created thinking spaces. Thinking spaces online, in online meetings, where everybody can participate.
Some MPs at the exhibition say they are contented about recent innovations in the development of technology in the country.
If you have time, if you're in Kampala, please come to Kololo, observe what science has to offer. As you know, science, technology and innovation is the way to go. With the science is the knowledge that you have. Then with that knowledge, you come up with technology, things that...
However, some members of Parliament had questions about the way the sector is funded.
It is about value addition in all aspects. So for me, I employ the minister because she said we politic everything. It's not all about politics. Actually, she must understand that administration and leadership move concurrently. So the ministry must popularize whatever it does.
Dr. Musenero, however, says government is ready to support and work with the private sector to make Uganda technology and innovations hub. She says innovations that solve problems in society are easy to market and promote.
A major source of e-mobility technology. And that we have branded ourselves, we are investing there, we want to put ourselves at the front.
Report compiled by Nyongereza, CTV, PM Edition.
The sorry state of roads in Luwero district has saddened leaders in the area who accuse the central government of reducing budgets for roads and concentrating on non-functional ventures in the country. This comes at a time when the district road network is in sorry state, forcing the majority of residents to fail to transport their produce to the market.
Luwero district has a total road network coverage of approximately 1,200 kilometers, and most of them are unpaved feeder roads. The limited road maintenance machinery owned by the district can't serve the area effectively. The district engineer, Robert Kalenzi Segawa, and Elizabeth Namada, Chief Administrative Officer, blamed the poor state of roads to the meager amounts of money allocated to the district.
When you compare the amount of money that we receive vis-a-vis the amount of kilometers that we maintain, it's indeed very small.
So people keep complaining that we have not done roads, but we do what we can do in the little resources that we get.
MPs that represent various constituencies in the district, led by Brenda Nabukenya, together with the District Works Committee, have inspected the roads.
The roads are in a bad state and there is little funding. We think the government must invest in the roads.
Robert Sechitole Cole, the Bamunanika Member of Parliament, blames the poor state of roads on government, which he says has wrong priorities.
If government is pushing now a liability to PDM, where PDM is non-function, so we still have a question. Who is fooling who?
Sharon Twebaze, CTV PM Edition.
In our regional news, I beg your pardon, France and Germany have released 600 million euros to help the energy transition in South Africa as part of an investment plan approved at COP27 in Egypt for a total of $98 billion. The details in the regional news.
South Africa, France and Germany have signed agreements for the two European nations to provide 300 million euros each in concessional financing to South Africa in support of the country's efforts to reduce its dependence on coal. The three countries announced on Wednesday in a joint statement. South Africa gets 80% of its electricity from coal, a pillar of the economy that employs nearly 100,000 people. Several power plants are to be shut down by the end of 2030. The state-owned company Eskom, which is in debt, is unable to produce enough electricity with its aging installations and is imposing continuous power cuts. A 98 billion euros investment plan for the energy transition of Africa's leading industrial power was approved earlier this week at the UN Climate Summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, which opened on Sunday following an agreement in principle reached last year at the COP26 in Glasgow. France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the United States and the European Union had pledged the support of $8.5 billion with the ambition of making South Africa an example of cooperation in the fight against emissions in developing countries.
On the international scene, results are being declared in the U.S. midterm elections, with control of Congress hanging in the balance. Republicans are likely to take control of the House of Representatives, according to projections, but the Senate fight is on a knife edge. While Russia's military has been ordered to pull out of the Ukrainian city of Kherson, the only regional capital captured since the invasion began in February.
If Democrats lose control of either the House of Representatives or the Senate, Republicans will be able to block President Joe Biden's agenda. Democrat John Fetterman, who suffered a stroke in May, defeated his Republican opponent Mehmet Oz to flip a key Senate state in Pennsylvania. But the results of 4 incredibly close Senate races that will decide the contest have yet to be called, with the race in Georgia likely to go to another vote in December. In Kentucky, voters rejected an amendment that would have removed abortion rights from the Constitution, adding to wins for pro-choice activists in other states. Former President Donald Trump has seen some of his endorsed candidates fail. Meanwhile, Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, a possible 2024 presidential contender, has won a large victory to stay in office. Elsewhere, Russia's military has been ordered to pull out the Ukrainian city of Kherson, the only regional capital captured since the invasion began in February. Russia's commander in Ukraine, Gen Sergei Shirovakin, said it was no longer possible to maintain supplies to the city. The withdrawal means Russian forces will pull out entirely from the region on the west bank of the river Dnipro. Ukrainian forces continue their advance on Wednesday, with reports of heavy fighting around the town of Snovika, a strategic town to the northeast of Kherson. Meanwhile, images seen by Reuters news agency showed a key bridge east of Kherson had collapsed into the water. It was unclear how the bridge was destroyed, although there was speculation it might have been blown by retreating Russian troops. The Russian-installed deputy governor of Kherson, Stril Strimosov, has been killed in a car crash, local officials and media say.
PM Edition returns shortly with more news from the world of sports.
Kigali. So that we assess, the question tonight, we assess the impact of the DRC crisis on East African community and its intended objectives as stated in the East African Treaty that was signed in 1999, between 1999 and 2000. That is what we are assessing tonight. Is this crisis going to tear the East African community to shreds, or it is an opportunity for the East African community to clean its house? That is what we'll be discussing tonight, Melissa.
Well, thank you, Heston, for that brief teaser. Do stay tuned in for the big debate show that will be starting at exactly 10 p.m. From us on PM Edition, we wish you a good night and be blessed.